Hola geeks, bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de GeekGirlsMX. GeekGirlsMX es un proyecto de Geek Girls MX y Geek Girls MX es una comunidad creada por mujeres que buscan hacer de su pasión un proyecto de vida. Yo soy Yani, hoy está conmigo Verónica Madrigal como co-host y de invitada tenemos a Manasi con quien vamos a platicar de música, pero no de cualquier música, ya verán qué tipo de música. Y bueno, antes de empezar con el episodio, es muy importante agradecerles a todos ustedes por acompañarnos en un nuevo episodio más. Muchas gracias por todo lo que hacen, por apoyar este proyecto. Recuerden que nos ayudan muchísimo cuando le dan un like a nuestros episodios y si pueden calificarlo con 5 estrellas en las plataformas en las que nosotros estamos distribuyendo este proyecto, sería genial. También muchas gracias a nuestros queridos patrocinadores RSS, el lugar ideal para hospedar tu proyecto de podcast, y Soho, el lugar en donde puedes encontrar lo que necesitas para subir tu proyecto al mundo digital. Y bueno, ahora sí vamos a empezar con nuestro episodio. This is gonna be one of the chapters that we have in English because today we are going to talk with Manasi. So he speaks English, he doesn't speak Spanish, so we have to jump to English right now. So let's go with this girls.
Okay, so
Guys, girls, and then
yeah, some people
everybody.
do use
Yeah.
everybody, guys, girls, and everybody. So I'm gonna introduce today Manasi. Manasi Prasad is a noted India classical vocalist from Bangalore and the museum director of the Indian Music Experience Museum. Manasi has performed widely across India and in 6 continents around the world. She is a recipient of the prestigious Bishmillah Khan Yuva Puraskar from the government of India. She has brought perspectives from the arts into the corporate world through talks. Manasi is an engineering graduate and went to do her MBA from into India Institute of Management in Bangalore. She is a Melton Fellow, a TED Fellow, and has been recognized as one of the 35 Indians of tomorrow by the India Today publications. But she is also a mother to 250 kids. She has ran half marathons and enjoys her practice of yoga. Manasi, welcome to this episode. We're so happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
Hola, Vero. Oh, hi. And yo hablo poquito español. So, yes, we have to do this in English, but mucho gusto. Estoy muy contenta de estar aquí. And that's it. Now Spanish is over.
That's enough. That's enough for us. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we are going to start with this conversation because we have a lot of to know. We have a lot of questions for you. So the first thing we are going to talk is, well, as you can see, Manise is from India, but what part of the India are you? Where are you from exactly?
So, India, as you know, is a very big country,
Yeah, exactly.
very diverse. And I come from Bangalore, which is a city in the south part of India.
Okay.
Bangalore is known for many things like wonderful weather. It's a very cosmopolitan society with people from all over the country. And today, Bangalore is known as the Silicon Valley of India because it is the hub of software development in the country and home to so many startups and unicorns, and yet is very much rooted in tradition and culture. So, very much like India, I think Bangalore is a city that brings together India's rootedness in tradition with, a futuristic outlook. So, I'm from the city and I love it, and I want everybody to come and visit.
So I have a question. I mean, tell us a little bit of how you started your professional life because I kind of see like a lot of, little things of everything. Like you're into music, you're into arts, and then museum, but then you're also an engineer. So
But
how did
also
you
a
actually,
mother.
yeah, also mother, how do you get there? Like where do you start these 3 different things that you're doing
Sure.
right now?
Um, so first of all, of course, I do think that women are natural multitaskers. We love doing more than one thing at a time. And it's something that I enjoy. As far as how I've gone on to do so many things in my life, of course I'm really happy and I'm blessed to have had the opportunity to develop various sides of my personality. um, I started um, learning Indian music, when I was very young. In fact, my first memories of life is of myself as a little baby, on my mother's lap, and she was teaching other people to sing. My mother was a music teacher,
Mm.
and we lived in Kuwait, which is this country in the Gulf, which is most famous for the Iraq War and everything that happened there. But that's where my family was for like the first 8 years of my life. And my mother was teaching the Indian diaspora community to sing. And I thought that everybody in the world sings, and to be human is to sing. And only later I realized that no, not everybody sings, it's just some people. So I think music was something that came very naturally to me, and I loved being on stage at these little Indian community events and things like that. So it was just something that I naturally gravitated towards. Later on, tide of events brought me back to India when the Gulf War happened, and I started pursuing music more seriously with senior gurus or teachers of Indian classical music. Alongside, in India, of course, there is a lot of focus on education and making sure that you do get a well-rounded education. This was something that was emphasized in my family. So uh, from
It's okay.
my phone,
worry.
I'm gonna
Don't worry.
sort of put that on silent. Sorry about that, multitasking. So alongside, of course, I think I had a natural affinity for academics, and I think that engaging with music helped me develop powers of discipline, concentration. There's a lot of maths that happens in Indian classical music, patterns, combinations. Okay, I'm gonna have to, I don't know what we do about this, but uh, just give me a second. I will just have to take this. I'm
Okay.
doing a podcast. I'm doing a podcast. I'm doing a podcast right now. So I will call you back. It'll take me an hour. Okay, bye. Sorry about that. We're going
Yeah,
into
sorry.
We get it. Don't
So
worry.
coming back, yeah. So I think academics and just uh, you know studying came very easily to me, and as I said, I credit a lot of that to music, and this is why I think everybody, especially young people, need
Mhm.
exposure to music and the arts, because it just works your brain and your connections
Mm.
differently. So I really
Yes.
credit music with having that done that for me. And of course, yes, academically, I went on to do a degree in engineering. I think I have, both sides, which is like a right brain, creative side, and a left brain, analytical side. And I wanted to develop both of these. So, yes, I went on to do a degree in engineering and then got a business degree from one of the top business schools in India. But throughout my academic career, music was something that has been constantly with me. I
Mhm.
started performing concerts when I was about 12 or 13 years old.
Oh wow.
Started being
Wow.
invited to venues in India for festivals and concerts, started performing on television and radio. So these things sort of happened quite early for me in my career.
Mhm.
So for a very long time, I was sort of doing both these things together, which was, of course, my education in a mainstream line of work and my parallel artistic career. And today, where I am, I think in a strange way, everything has come together in my work. In setting up this amazing museum for music,
Yes.
or in my work as a musician, where I'm able to sort of connect with audiences, because perhaps I understand a little bit about communication and marketing from business school. So in a way, I think everything is coming together very nicely.
Connected.
And
Yeah.
and and more than anything, what's life if you don't have different experiences, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nothing
exactly.
you do, the more things you do, I think there's more to learn and enjoy.
Yeah,
Yes.
we know what are you doing here right now, but the people who are listening don't know. So if you can share with us, what are you doing? Why are you here in Mexico?
I'm so thrilled to be in Mexico. I love this country. And in a strange way, I feel like India and Mexico are like very connected with
Yeah.
each other. We're, of course, both diverse countries, multiplicity of like languages and landscapes and cultures. There's a lot of sort of ancient traditions. And then, of course, there is this, the whole colonial history that we
Mhm.
share. And today, we're both societies that I think are really racing to the future and are going to become increasingly more important countries and societies. And I think Indians and Mexicans, of course, we connect on food because,
Spicy.
yeah, we love the muy picante caliente food. Um, and we're both very naturally expressive people. So I
Mhm.
feel this sort of subliminal connect with the people of Mexico. But why I'm here is because um, I and my group of musicians from India are currently on a 12 city tour of Mexico. And we're almost at the fag end of the tour. We have 2 shows more to go. We were mainly invited to perform at the Cervantino festival, Festival Internacional de Cervantino, which is, among the biggest festivals, not just in Mexico, but in the entire world. And we were selected by the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, which is a body in India under the government responsible for, selecting and sending musicians to perform at
Mhm.
festivals and represent the country and its culture around the world. And in Mexico City, there is the Indian Cultural Center, and they served as a liaison. So between the ICCR in India and the Indian Cultural Center in Mexico, they worked with Cervantino and various other circuits of concerts. We've also been performing at the Festival Internacional Santa Lucia here in Monterrey, Nuevo León, where I am right now.
Nice.
So, yes, so we're here for this concert tour. And what we've been doing this tour is presenting a journey through the music of India. So, while I
Mhm.
am mainly an Indian classical musician, I also sing various other forms of music from folk to a little bit of contemporary to, we've even found connects between like a Spanish song and a Bollywood song. So it's really each show for the audience is a journey through Indian music and Indian culture from the traditional to the contemporary. And people have been loving it, and we've been loving it too.
I heard you. I heard you in the Cervantino. So I
You
saw
did
the video. Yes, and it's
it?
amazing. And I remember that you mentioned like I really want to, get off the mind of people that Indian music is just the way it looks in Bollywood. We have so many other, interpretations of it. And that's exactly what you're doing kind of, right? Like you're showing the people what else there is to music in India. So I would like to ask, like, what is your favorite, let's say, piece or song that you love to sing, and why? And what does it say? Because of course, I just
Yeah.
heard kind of like the sound, and I'm like, that's beautiful, but I don't know what
Sure.
she's saying.
Yeah.
I'm going to quickly give you a little bit of download because, as you rightly said, it's not just with India, but with any culture around the world. Because of media and social media today, we've developed these cultural stereotypes of what countries
Mhm.
are about. Like, to us in India, like Mexican food is Taco Bell, and people here are insulted when we say that.
Exactly.
So similarly with India, I do feel that there are predominantly 2 stereotypes about Indian music and Indian performing arts around the world. One is Bollywood, which is of course India's biggest cultural export in the world, and
Mhm.
the other is the idea of the sitar and the tabla and Indian classical spiritual meditative music. And that is largely because of this great musician called Ravi Shankar, who lived in the who was in the 60s and 70s, this amazing legend of Indian music who took Indian music around the world, especially to the West. And the idea of sitars and tablas and its
Mhm.
association with meditation, spirituality is the image of Indian music in the
It
West.
is.
So very quickly in India, there are a multiplicity of music genres. You have um, classical music, and there are two types of classical music. So in the north, you have Hindustani music, which is the music perhaps that people are most familiar with around the world. But the form of music that I sing is called Carnatic music, Musica Carnatica, and that is the music, classical music of South India. And while there are connections, each one has its unique features and characteristics. And I believe that Carnatic music, the music that I sing, is very dynamic. It's has very interesting rhythms. It has a variety of different kinds of compositions. It has improvisation. So it's a very nice complete package of different
Mm-hmm.
ideas. Then you have folk music, right? Which is like the music of the people. And in India, you have like songs from the time you're born to the time you die. You have songs for different professions, your songs in different languages, for different religions, so different kinds of folk music. And then you have popular music, right? Which is, of course, the music of Bollywood, but then there's also like independent rock bands, there's hip hop, there's regional forms of rock music, EDM, all those new forms of music that are coming out of India. And then you have everything in between, right? You have devotion music, you have music of like marching bands. And so there's a lot that's there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And um, so, if you ask me what is my favorite piece of music, it's very hard to say because
Yeah,
believe I believe that music is a universal language,
Yes.
and even if you don't understand what I'm singing, there is something in the melody and the rhythms that can connect. But since you're asking me, and so there is this saint poet in India. Her name was Mirabai, and she lived around the 15th century. She was a princess. And in a beautiful palace, she had all kinds of material comforts, but she just wanted to sing and dance. And she was deeply in love, but not with a human being. She was in love with Krishna, Lord Krishna. And she imagined herself to be wedded to him. And I think she was one of the earliest feminists, I think, in India because um, she broke with convention. She gave up her marital home. She walked out of the palace and spent the rest of her life in the streets of Dwarka and Vrindavan, which are holy places in India, singing and dancing. And her songs speak to me a lot. And I'm very inspired by her because she wasn't just a saint poet. She was a woman who took a very courageous decision and said, hey, I don't care what society says. This is what I want to do. And it's because of that that we remember her, and her songs are sung even to this day. So many songs of hers speak very strongly to me. And one of them I love, and I'd like to share a few lines with you. Mm, 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 Mharare गिरिधर गोपाल दूसरा न कोया म्हारारे गिरिधर गोपाल दूसरा न कोया दूसरा न कोया दूसरा न कोया सदा सकल लोक जोया दूसरा न कोया म्हारारे गिरिधर गोपाल दूसरा न कोया. And this song says,
It's nice.
thank you.
Love it.
This
Yeah,
song
beautiful.
says, there's nothing else for me except my love. For in her case, it was Krishna. And she says, Dusara na koi, there's nothing else for me. I don't care what the world says. This is my love. And to me, I often speak to people about following their passions and their dreams. And it's okay what people say. And I think Mira is a great inspiration for that. Like, do what you love and find a way to make it happen.
I love it.
Uh,
Love it. And you have to share with us, where can we hear more about her or her music? Yeah, you have to give us that link and we'll just leave it in this episode because
yeah.
loved
Yeah,
it.
I've
Thank you so
recorded a
much.
whole album of Mira's songs,
Oh,
where the lyrics, of course, are hers, but I've tuned
uh-huh.
them and arranged them. And I'm going to share that album. It's one of my favorite of my work.
Yes, please do. Love it. Love it.
That will be amazing. So I have a question. You said that you are the kind of music you are interpreting is Carnatic music, but why did you choose to interpret this kind of music? Why is so important to you to represent this part of the culture of your country?
So I think, of course, while all forms of music are beautiful, um, to me, I see myself as a link between the past and the future. And I come from a tradition which is so rich, and Indian classical music has a history of more than 2000 years. It traces its roots back to, somewhere between the second century BC and AD, to this book called the Natya Shastra, which is sort of a treatise on Indian classical arts. And we still follow a lot of what was there, elucidated there. I believe Indian classical music is very special because, despite having a lot of conventions and structures, it allows infinite room for improvisation, and that's the part that speaks to me. So let me give you an example. So one of the key concepts of Indian classical music and the Carnatic tradition is called raga. A raga is a melody, and it's an expression of emotion, and it can also be defined as a group of notes. So any raga, so you have like sa ri ga pa da sa da pa ga ri sa, that corresponds to like do re mi so la
Okay.
do la so mi re do, sa ri ga pa da sa da pa ga ri sa. But as an interpreter of Carnatic music, I can improvise endlessly on these notes, like gari gari ri ga gari 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 ga gari gari sa da sa ri ga ga gari ga pa ga da pa ga ri ga pa ga ri sa ri ga ri ga pa ga pa da sa da pa ga ri sa ri ga pa da sa ri sa da pa ga ri ga pa da sa ri ga ga ri da sa da pa ga ri sa ri ga pa da sa ri ga pa ga ri da pa ga ri sa da pa da sa. So and the beauty of
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Looks like the kind of music you go deeply into yourself. Is this? I can imagine when you have all the instruments together and your voice will be, well, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the fun, because no two concerts are exactly the same. I may be singing the same raga or the same composition, but I have the freedom within the
Mhm.
structure and the rules and the tradition to improvise endlessly. The other thing that I love about Indian classical music is that this system of rhythm and melody, the raga and tala, allows me to connect with any form of music around the world. So, for example, I'm sure you've all heard this tune. Ta ra 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 ra, ta ta da ra ra, ta ra 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 da da da. This
Yeah,
is
of course.
bella ciao,
Yeah.
bella ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invasor. And for me, I can interpret it in terms of an Indian raga with the note pasarika sa, pasarika sa, sarika ri sa ga ri sa pa pa, pa ma pa da pa ma da pa ma ga ri sa ni da ma ga ri sa. So I'm able to connect with any form of music from around the world, and that's what I enjoy about it. So everybody should listen to more of Indian music because it's quite a piece.
Yes. Now with the playlist that you will be providing,
Yes.
It
Yes.
would be amazing. So I have a question, like, how does your group even follow up when you improvise? Like, do you guys always,
Kind
because
of
I mean,
signs.
improvising means not practicing, right? So how do they know what to do?
So I don't think improvisation is not practicing.
Okay.
Improvisation is flowing with musical ideas
Yeah.
with each other and being very present in the moment where we are able to react and respond to each
Nice.
other. So I have to talk about this group of musicians that I've brought with me to Mexico, and so along with me as the vocalist, I have a traditional Carnatic violin player. His name is Mattu Srinidhi, and I have a traditional Carnatic mridangam player. His name is Vinod Shyam. Young, very well-known artists who are at the top of their game. We've played many concerts together, and so there's an understanding that's developed. Along with that, in my ensemble, I have two artists who bring world music elements into my ensemble. So Solomon plays the keyboard, and he's a trained pianist, and along with his knowledge of Indian ragas, so he's able to, I guess, create a framework where it can, sound familiar to Western audiences as well. And I also have a percussionist with me called Karthik Mani, who plays like 7 or 8 different Indian instruments, along with like the cajon and the darbuka, which are world music and drums. So between the group of us, we we have such a good understanding with each other that, you know you have to just allow the magic to happen by being very present in the
Mm-hmm.
moment,
Mm-hmm.
um, having a very deep like connect with each other. And this is something I believe very strongly, that music is not about showing off. A lot of people think that, music is about, oh, how cool, look at all these things that I can do with my voice,
Yeah,
or
like so rock star, right? So that's the term, rock star. He's a rock star.
yeah, but I do believe that when everybody is humble to the music, and we approach it from the idea of, let's all make music together, and I'm not trying to, one up you or show that I'm the best in this group. That's
Mhm.
something I and my ensemble believe in very strongly, that we are here to share our love for music, and that's what I think makes the improvisation come alive. In general, all Indian classical musicians do improvise. It's a very strong part of our music tradition, and we're trained to do that, like jazz musicians.
Yeah.
Wow.
How long had you been together, like a group?
So all of us also have solo careers. We, work with different groups and ensembles as well. But all of us, for example, Srinidhi and I have been playing concerts together since we were like, each of us were 15 years old. So
Oh wow.
yeah. And, Solomon and I actually went to college together. He's an engineer as well.
Oh.
So we know each other for 20 years now. So we've all played in a group together. We've played individually with each other, and it's great fun. It's
That's so
been
cool.
yeah.
I have a question. Okay, so we're hearing this part, right? Of we know you're a mother and you have your career, but this is something like you kind of do for passion, but you're very serious about it. How how do you how do you manage to live, I mean, I'm sorry, to leave your kids in your country and come and do all this? Because I know there's a lot of mothers that they're like, oh, my heart breaks if I leave my kids, I want to do this, but then I have the kids at home. So like, how do you approach this situation? Because we do know and we are aware that, okay, we have kids, but that doesn't mean we don't have any more passions or life, as an individual. It doesn't mean that we always have to be a mother. Like, how do you live this part of your professional, your passion, and then your motherhood?
Y- As you know, I think this is the hardest challenge that mothers face. And let's face it, however much things are progressing, society is still geared in a way that, the mother is in many ways considered the primary caregiver. And so I have two kids. My son is 9, Ayush, and my daughter Manya is 6. And yes, when they were really young, I did put my touring career on hold for and until my younger one was 5, I was not doing any international, at least. Of course, going in within India for a day or two was something that was okay, but beyond that, it was something that I had taken a decision, and that at that point in time, my kids needed me around. Uh, it's a hard question, as you know. And
Yeah.
leaving my children is not easy. And it's not just hard on me and them. For me to live my passion and fulfill my career means I need an entire support system around me to make it happen. Uh,
Yes.
my husband, who has his own very demanding career, parents, in-laws, and in India, of course, we have family who supports us, and of course, I have help, wonderful help at home. The hardest thing, though, is not the logistics, it's making peace with the guilt. And I think this is
Yes.
something that uh, is very hard for women to let go of. We feel that living our dreams is something that we need to feel guilty about. And
Yeah.
that's where I want to say, I think we can't let guilt stop us from living our dreams. My dream, my profession, my career is extremely important to me, and that's what makes me effective, happy, and fulfilled as a person, and in turn as a mother and a role model to my kids. So from the very beginning, my kids have seen me on stage, and they know that Mama's career, Mama's worked really hard to get to where she is right now, and it's only going to increase from here. And they need to make, everybody around needs to make their peace with that I have something unique to give to the world, and I need your support to make this happen. So it's hard, and every morning I do wake up, especially when my kids are sick, and my husband is calling me and saying, what do I do? And it's hard, it's not easy,
Yes.
but I'm not going to let guilt stop me from living my dreams. And I don't think this should stop any woman out there from believing that she's worth it. And whatever sacrifices her family has to make is worth it, so that,
Yes.
we are all fulfilled in whatever we do.
Yes,
Yes.
totally agree. This is kind of the philosophy that we like to share with the people who is listening. Because yes, for some reason, this is some other thing that the Mexico and India have in common.
The
Yes,
guilt.
yeah, the guilt. Yeah, we used to just left your life and go with your kids and forget about all everything about you, but now we know that there is a lesson that we are teaching our sons. So because it's important, you can go and follow your dreams. You can do whatever you want to do, whatever you makes that makes you happy, and that's the message that you are teaching to them. So that's why we think it's so important, and forget about the guilty and all these things, because it's just because it works for the system. I don't know. But doesn't work for us, doesn't work for happiness, doesn't work for life with love and passion. And well, this something that is very important for us. We are living in another time. We deserve follow our dreams and live and achieve our goals, because they are
Yes.
important to. Yeah, so thank you
Yeah.
for sharing with us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I would also like to say that sometimes we feel that others may not do such a good job at managing the house as we do, but you know what, it's okay if the house is not perfect, if the meals are not like all the time, it's okay. I mean, we have to, in some ways, allow for other people to step up and take responsibility, and that's when they will rise to the occasion and surprise us with what they can do. Our kids will become more mature when they don't have someone who's doing everything for them. Our husbands will do more. Our parents or our in-laws or our help, whoever it is, will have to step up, because we deserve that. We deserve every ounce of support from society to contribute. And um, and this is something that I very strongly believe in, that every woman must make that decision to live her dreams, and everything else,
Yes.
make everything else fall in place. It's hard, it's not the same for everybody. I'm speaking from a position of privilege. I know that I can afford help, and I have a strong family support system. But we all have to find our ways to make this happen, because giving up on our dreams is not an option.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. Plus, that's the only way to teach, I believe, better, like by example. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's possible and if you can make it happen, go ahead and just go for it, right? That's because I kind of think, like, how can I tell my kids, hey, go after your dreams, do this, do that, and then they hear me talking about all the things that I wish I could have done and I've never done. Like, they're not going to buy that. And I really want them to be happy, right? I want to be happy and I want them to be happy. So yes, that's a good way of showing them and giving them this lesson. So Jenny, do you have another question around
Uh,
motherhood or professional life?
well, I was thinking about the characteristic of the Carnatic music. Is
Yeah.
yeah? Where is it? What would you say the principal characteristic? I know you said that you are improvising, and this kind of these kind of letters, the script that they have is like a history, like a legend, like is a true history or is a legend?
Like, where did the story of
Yeah.
the songs come from?
Yeah, where do the story of the songs come from? In Carnatic music, the music that I sing, um, it is centered around various compositions of music. And these compositions have been composed by legendary composers through the ages. So, like just like you have Beethoven and Mozart and Bach, in Indian classical music, you have composers as well. And three of the most legendary composers of music lived around the 18th century. And a large part of what we sing today is, of course, based on their work. But of course, there have been new composers who've come after that. And as I said, while that is the composition, we improvise on it a lot. What is the subject matter of the compositions? Now, a large part of it is centered around the religion and the philosophy of the Hindu religion. And so a lot of the Carnatic music compositions are in praise of a deity or a god. And in the Hindu tradition, you have many different gods. You have Krishna, Rama, you have the mother goddess in various forms, you have Ganesha, you have Shiva. So a lot of the compositions are in praise of a particular deity. There are compositions which are on other themes, like love or nature or something like that, but perhaps fewer in number. Um, but there is something beyond that, which is in India, the philosophy is not just music is for God, but sound itself is God. We have this concept called Nada Brahma, which means that sound is God. And in the Hindu tradition, it is actually believed that the world was created with sound. The sound Om was where was how the universe was created. And so sound has a very sort of deep importance in our system. Beyond that, of course, there are so many legends. Like, for example, one of the songs that I've been singing on this tour is a composition of this composer called Muthuswami Dikshitar. And he was walking through this drought-stricken region, a region with no rain. And people were suffering. And he created this raga, this melody called Amrita Varshini, which means nectar of rain, or rain of nectar. And he composed a song in that composition. And of course, there's a legend that says that when he sang that composition, it started raining so much that he had to sing it again and say, please stop raining. So this is, of course, mired in legend, and but I think it kind of illustrates the deep connection between music and nature as well. So so the raga is sa ga ma pa ni sa ni pa ma ga sa आनन्दामृतकर्षिणि अमृतवर्षिणि हरदे पूजिते शिवे भवानी आनन्दामृतकर्षिणि अमृतवर्षिणि हरदे पूजिते शिवे भवानी. So that is the beginning of the composition, and it says Amrita Varshini, oh, bless this world with rain. And when we sing this composition, at least for us, we've heard it so many times that we can actually imagine rain in our minds. And I love singing it because it's got such an interesting story behind it. But of course, there are many, many, many different kinds of compositions. And
Yeah, so
That's
interesting.
Yes. And I
I'd
think
love, sorry, I'd love to
Go
talk
ahead.
a little bit about, because people have so many questions about Indian music. So where
mm,
do you go? How do you learn about all these forms of music? And this was one of the questions that I always had when I was performing. And
mhm,
people want to know more, but they don't know where to go, right?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
um, which is the reason why we've set up this institution called the Indian Music Experience Museum.
I
It
was
is,
about to ask you about that. I was going to say, okay, tell us about the museum. Like, what exactly, which experiences do you live there?
yeah. So the idea of the museum is just that it's a space to introduce everybody to the diversity and the history of Indian music, from the traditional to the contemporary. So anybody, whether you know music, you don't, you're a music student, or you're from some part of the world, doesn't matter. You come there, you'll get a sense of what Indian music is all about. The IME is the vision of is the brainchild of our founder, whose name is Jai Shankar. He is the chairperson of the Brigade Group, which is a large real estate development company in India. And I remember at a concert at that time I was studying in IIM, and I had said, when there is an Indian Institute of Management, I wish one day we will have an Indian Institute of Music. And he had a similar vision. He wanted to set up an institution for music, and he invited me on board, and he said, hey, I have this land and I would like to support a project where we set up an institution that introduces people to music. And among our many travels, he and I visited the Experience Music Project, which is a music museum in Seattle, which celebrates pop culture in the US. And we said, hey, if the US can have museums like this, why not in India, an experiential space that uh, gives people an experience of what it is to be in
Mhm.
music. So the IME was took 10 years to set up. It opened in 2019, and it has three parts. It has a sound garden outside the museum where you can make music yourself with like wind chimes and gongs and bells and things like that. Inside the museum, it's these exhibit galleries, but they are very interactive. So you can sort of read stories, you can listen to music, you can play with computer interactives, you can see artifacts on display, a whole lot of things that you can do. It's a very experiential journey. And then we have a learning center where you can actually learn music. So we have 200 kids and adults learning music there. We do events and public programs, we do festivals. We work with community outreach initiatives to bring disadvantaged kids to the museum. So there's a lot that happens, and through this we hope that people in India and around the world are able to get the opportunity to understand a little more about Indian music and Indian culture.
That is so
Great.
interesting. You have to leave us also the link to your museum so people can learn more about it, and whoever decides to visit should visit your museum, of
Please
course.
come. We love people from around the world. It's Our museum is among the top 10 tourist attractions in our city. And it's the only music museum in our country and very few in Asia as well. So everybody must come.
Yeah, so I have one more question, and I'm just wondering, when you've been a TED Fellow or Milton Fellow, and I see that you normally talk to the corporate world, the perspective from arts, what exactly is the topic that you're sharing with them?
Sure. So I believe that the world of the arts has a lot to offer to the corporate world. And I like to break it up by saying, the arts gives you the power of the three C's. It's create, communicate, and collaborate. This is what we do as artists, and this is what people need to have a successful journey in the corporate world as an individual or an institution. So I take paradigms from the world of the arts, the idea of creating infinitely within a raga, or you talk about communication. In Indian arts, you have the concept of navarasa or nine emotions. How do you use body language and gesture and notes and to communicate? And then the idea of collaboration, right? We are talking about multicultural teams and cross cultural collaborations. Musicians have been doing that forever. Ravi Shankar worked with the Beatles and inspired the Rolling Stones and worked with the top composers around the world, and musicians to this day work across cultures.
Yes.
So I take paradigms and examples from the world of the arts. I get audience these people from the corporate world to live the life of an artist for a little bit. What is it to innovate? What is it to create? How do you say make a musical instrument with household objects? How do you write a theme song for yourself or for your organization? And so I think we can all do with a little more creativity in our lives, and
Yes.
that's the perspective I like to bring.
That's
I
interesting.
I really love the C's concept: create, collaborate, and communicate.
And
Yes,
communicate.
yes. It makes totally
Yeah.
sense for me.
I want to hear that TED
Yeah,
Talk. Is
exactly.
it it's probably
And
YouTube, right?
I will leave the link to my TED Talk as well.
please.
Perfect.
So you have a lot of links to share with us and all the audience. Yes. So we are in the end of the chapter. But we want to let us tell us where we can follow you. I mean, your social media and all these places that we can go to find and to find something else about you and your music.
Absolutely. I would love to share more about my music with audiences around the world. So the best way is right now Instagram, and I'm at Raga Manasi, RAAGAMANASI. That's my handle on Instagram and Facebook. My website is manasiprasad.co.in. I'm also on YouTube. My channel is just Manasi Prasad. And you can also visit the museum's website. It's indianmusicexperience.org. You can follow Indian Music Experience on Instagram and Facebook as well. Yeah, and I'm happy to share, more links or
Yes.
about music.
We'll leave all the social handles in this episode as well, so people can click and just move
Go.
from there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, because I'm pretty sure the listener have a lot of questions. We know we don't have enough time to answer all of the questions that we have, but well, we have this option. You share with us all your your social media. Yeah, exactly. And maybe they can talk
Connect
with
directly.
you. Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for all the experience that you share with us. And thank you, Vero, to join me in this chapter episode. I don't know how to call. And thank you for everybody that is in the end of this episode. I'm going to jump to Spanish just to say goodbye. Yeah. So, muchas gracias a todos los que se quedaron hasta el final del episodio. Recuerden que nos pueden seguir en todas partes como GeekGirlsMX. Y bueno, pues nos vemos el siguiente miércoles o cualquier día de la semana que ustedes quieran vernos o escucharnos. Y pues nada, recuerden darle like, compartir y muchas gracias. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.